good afternoon, Bronwyn. How are you today?
Very well, thank you, and a pleasure to be with you.
That's good. It's great to see you here this afternoon. I thought we'd just spend a little bit of time talking about a few points that maybe that you've had or thought about that you can come to grips with and let us know, the public, on some of the situations or questions I'd like to ask, if that's okay with you.
Yes, certainly.
Alrighty. Bronwyn, how have you come to be endorsed by the Counter Australian Party for Herbert? Was it a spontaneous thing, or had you thought about it for some time?
Well, it was really a spontaneous decision with, I guess, to run for the seat of Herbert, although for, I think, probably a few years now, I've been very disturbed about how the country is going. And even in the late Howard years, I was very concerned with the decisions being made by the LNP government. And then, of course, we had the ALP following on. And so I found myself doing a lot of complaining, I think, as a lot of people do. And then I finally decided, well, instead of whinging about the situation, do something about it. So that's exactly what I did.
Okay, well, that's pretty good. That's pretty well up with what most people are thinking, I think. What sort of area does your electorate cover? You might give us some idea.
Yes, generally we consider it to cover the city of Townsville. That's just loosely what we say. But in fact it goes right up to the northern beaches and to Sleeper Log Creek, and then goes west, including Rangewood, but not including Rupertswood, which belongs in Bob Katter's electorate, and then it includes the army base, but not the southern suburbs. So your southern suburbs of Annandale and Noonba, etc., are actually in the seat of Dawson, which is based on Mackay. So that can be, I think, a bit difficult for people on the south side of the river who are living in Dawson, because basically they see themselves as associated with Townsville. But I mean, electorates, as they grow in population, they just come closer and closer into the city. So that's basically how it works. And it also includes Palm Island, of course, and Magnetic Island.
Okay. I see you've actually run for politics previously too, on a state level, and now the federal level. Was there a reason? I mean, it was some time ago, but obviously you've got some concern and would rather run for federal?
Yes, I did run in 1986 for the seat of Thurungow, and it went very, very close. It went to a recount. It was only about 283 votes behind. So it was a very close electorate and result, but I decided not to run again at that stage, and I did the family thing. I was very young at the time, and so I focused on family and other interests, and then I think with my concerns about what's happening in Australia, and particularly with the sell-off of land, the lack of jobs going to foreign fly-in, fly-out workers, those were just some of the things that really prompted me to put my hand up.
Okay, and what made you run for the Katter Party?
Oh, that's a very easy one, because Bob Katter for years has been speaking up for Australia, and even though he has his electorate of Kennedy, you find if you listen to Bob that his focus it's certainly on Kennedy, but it's also on what's good for Australia as well, because if we don't look after our country, our nation, then it doesn't matter what electorate we're sitting in, we can't do any good in that electorate. And Bob has been speaking up now regarding Aussie jobs for Aussie workers, that concern about flying in overseas people who are supposedly getting paid the same rates as our own local Australians, but that's very questionable. And also the sale of Australian land. That's just appalling to see what's been happening, especially only very recently with the sale of Cubby Station to the Chinese, and the lease of Stage 2 of the Ord River system to the Chinese also. So we've got very great concerns about what's happening, and of course Bob has spoken up numerous times, countless times, about the what's happening with agriculture, the farmers going broke, the number of suicides that are happening, and also manufacturing, which is getting to a point of being non-existent in some fields.
Is there some area of interest that you have? You know, like everybody has a policy or part policies of the whole of the Katter
Sure.
Party. Is there something that really intrigues you, or something you're looking into more personally than other policies?
I think the Aussie Jobs one and the Aussie land is a very great concern for me. In 1987, I actually worked with a mining company as a consultant, and my role at that stage was to bring in expert people, and obviously, you know, on a temporary basis was the plan. Because jobs needed to, work needed to be done. So that was my role. And so I have a strong, I guess, a strong knowledge of what happened then and how hard it was to get people in. And for example, we had to run 2 ads in national newspapers on consecutive Saturdays, and we had to prove that we could not get a suitable Australian resident for that position. And then we had to present all that material to the immigration department to be able to get a visa for these people to come in. So you can appreciate then that it was very rare to get someone in, very difficult. And now to see and hear these stories of Australians, particularly in the Townsville area, we're so close to the mining, who apply for jobs in the mines and can't get them, and then you find foreigners can come in. And Bob has talked to, in some of the towns that it's like spot the Aussie, because people, I'm not talking about migrants now, not at all, we welcome migrants, but people who are just coming in, working, providing cheap labour, and then flying back at the end of their temporary 475 visa. So, but in addition to that, my other very great concern is with aged care and disabilities, and those are personal things. I've spent a number of years heavily involved as a responsible carer for my parents, and I've realised that the disability sector is very similar to what goes on with aged care. And governments come and governments go, and they promise all this extra funding for aged care, and for example, and then when the families go to try to take up those offerings for assistance, they find that no, sorry, it's all been taken up. So it's a trick. It's a trick, and it's very bad.
And it's getting worse, yes.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
What will you be focusing on in the coming months to help the people of Herbert? Bronwyn?
Look, a couple of things, like those things that I've already mentioned, because they do affect us deeply, like especially with employment here, and I think everyone in Australia is, the grassroots people are cranky about Australian land being sold off and the lack of jobs. And then specifically here in Herbert, the other thing that we're looking to do is, and we've been working and discussing this for quite a period of time now, especially Bob Katter's been involved with this, Robbie Katter, who, as you know, has the seat of Mount Isa, and we've been discussing getting an energy corridor to go out to the west, so with the plan of getting cheap energy out there, and that's a really big concern. The ALP government has actually promised about 350 million towards the project, and it's basically, I guess, the reason we are so much in favour of it is that we believe if we can get energy out there, get electricity out into those areas, there'll be a lot more mines and a lot more industries will open up, and it's sort of we're certain that will happen, and I know there are Townsville Enterprise in Townsville obviously is right behind that scheme, and they're fronting it, and hoping that something will come of it. There's been a number of feasibility studies done, but it's time that it moved on.
Well, thank you very much for that, Bronwyn. What we'd like to do is a series of these and maybe go a bit more in depth in some of the policies. Okay, in the future, would that be okay with you?
Yeah, that would be a delight. Yes.
All right. Well, thanks very much for today and sparing your time as you have.
And thank you very much.